بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
I can speak from, alhamdulillah, some experience of having been there for a couple of years and then from time to time traveling to Shām. I thought before we do that, inshallah, we'll just have a very, very short dhikr, just some remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to connect our hearts with our Lord, remember why we're here today, inshallah. And this is one of the things that there's a tradition in Syria of doing this. So before they have a gathering, it was mentioned by Sidi Khalid as well, and also before any of the lectures, it's very common practice in the land of Shām for the scholars to begin their lecture with some light dhikr, some short dhikr. And the reason they do this is because we all come to these places with a lot of baggage, whether that's concerns about the dunya or whether it's worries about other things. So, and all the things that we pick up around our daily lives, being in the environment that we're here in this country, we're not in the land of Shām. But inshallah, in a place like this, we are connected to the land of Shām because we're remembering the Salihin. So they would always make some light dhikr before they started their talk or their program, inshallah. So I'd like you to join with me. I'm just going to say the Shahada 3 times, inshallah. We'll all say the Shahada together. And then just read some astaghfirullah. We'll just read that together just for 1 minute, inshallah. So if you can join with me, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أستغفر الله 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 العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه من كل ذنب ومعصية ومن كل ما يخالف دين الإسلام يا أرحم الراحمين. الفاتحة. So, talking about Shām is not an easy thing, subhanAllah. It's a weighty, very weighty subject. For those of you who've been there, you will understand what that means, inshallah. It's very difficult to talk about a place that the Prophet ﷺ himself has made dua for the land of Shām. To talk about a place where there are literally countless awliya and salihin buried in that land, on that mountain, Jabal al-Qasim, which you've seen, I think, projected just a bit earlier. A place where such great scholars and such great tradition of learning and knowledge has come from that place. It's a very weighty subject. But as I said before, I will try to address that from my own experience, inshallah, because that's something I can understand and I can relate to you, inshallah. So how did I come to learn about Shām? More than 22 years ago, before I even came to this beautiful religion of Islam, I studied at university. I was a student at Sheffield University, in those days called polytechnics. I don't remember those, probably some of the older ones remember polys, we used to call them, before they all became universities. And during my time at university, I became very interested in religion. I used to contemplate a lot about why I was there in university, and what we're all doing on this planet, and what the point of my life was in that time. And one of the things that I was interested in was the Sufis, the Tasawwuf, and the poets, the Sufi poets. So I began to read a lot about Sayyidina Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi, Mevlana, and also some of the poets of Al-Hijaz, and also some of the Turkish poets, and also even the Persian poets as well, who are very well known in the English Orientalist culture. And one of the great figures that I came across was Ibn al-Arabi, Sheikh al-Akbar, who was his sayings and his teachings became apparent to me. And so after a lot of reflection, and contemplation on the poems of the Sufis, I felt in my heart that these people were certainly connected to their Creator, their Lord, and that I wanted to try to reach them somehow through people maybe who were still practicing Tasawwuf today and who were following their teachings. So that's what I set out to do. And one of the places I had on the map was Damascus, Shām. And I sat in the library in Sheffield and I planned my journey, which was to go throughout the Middle East and try to learn more about these teachings that I'd read so much about. So obviously one of the people was Sheikh al-Akbar, and he was on my list to go and visit that place where he was buried, and maybe to try to talk to people in that vicinity and try to find out something more about his teachings. So with that in mind, I travelled to Istanbul in 1995. I left university and I went on some travelling, a journey to Istanbul, and through my travels, alhamdulillah, I met some of Mawlana Rumi's descendants, his family, in fact his direct descendants, alhamdulillah, and got to know through meeting them, spending time with them, some teachings of Mawlana Rumi. And then also, alhamdulillah, I got the opportunity to travel to Syria, and my first experience of Syria was actually on the border, going from Turkey to Syria, in which after about 8 hours travel on a bus, I got to the border, and the border guard, the Syrian border guard, looked at my passport and he said, "You can't come in." So I said, "Why?" There's a visa there from London. I went to the embassy, the Syrian embassy in London, and I got my visa, and I paid £20 or whatever it was at that time. It was quite a lot of money. And I said, "What's wrong with the visa?" He says, "No, this visa's not valid." And in my mind, in my very simple, innocent and immature mind, I thought, I don't understand this. Why would he do that, Anyway, I took it on the chin and I said, maybe there's a good reason for this. There's a plan, God's plan for me. So I turned back and he said, the people who were with me traveling, they said, "You have to go back to Ankara," which is, I don't know if you know the distance from the Turkish-Syrian border to Ankara is about a 20-hour journey in a bus. So I decided to go back there, get another visa for Syria so I could come back to Syria again. While I was at the embassy there, I met, as I said, I was, Allah Ta'ala's blessings to me, alhamdulillah, was a big gift, that I actually met the direct descendant of Mawlana Rumi at the embassy in Ankara. And had I not been refused on the border, I would never have met him, subhanAllah. He actually came up to me and said, you look a little bit stressed and worried. Can I help you?" who was, English, very good English spoken. And I said, yeah, I explained to him what happened. And he actually offered to take me all the way back to the border in his car, because he lived right on the border. So it was through getting this experience. My first experience of Shām was not a good one. But in a way, it was a very good one, because it was directly guiding me to where I wanted to go, alhamdulillah. So it was Allah's plan. And I later realized that actually the reason the border guard refused me was that he wanted some money, some they call it bakshish, some barakah, he wanted some extra money in the passport there, which I didn't know because I was a bit, innocent at that time. Anyway, alhamdulillah, I made it to Syria, and my first impressions of Syria were, it was like walking back in time. If you've ever been to Damascus, it's like the stories you read in, I used to read in the Bible before I became Muslim, about the road to Damascus and, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam being there and some of his companions being there. And it was just like walking back, into that time, subhanAllah. And it had a great impression on me. I didn't know at that time that I would actually be back in Damascus, probably, I think it was within a year and a half. So after my travels, I came back to the UK, and that's where I accepted Islam, alhamdulillah. And through meeting someone in Istanbul, I was given some contacts of people in the UK, and I met some students of Sheikh Nazim al-Naqshbandi from Kubrus, and I became Muslim with them, alhamdulillah. So that was, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala guided me. And what happened was, actually it turned out that this is a really strange thing. The student house that I was staying in Sheffield, down the same street, there was the Zawiya for Sheikh Nazim, down the same street. And I used to walk past it every day, and I used to think, what is that place? It was an old church. And I thought, that's really strange. It was either Jewish people or, some weird, there was people standing outside with turbans and sort of pointed turbans and things. That's really weird, And I used to walk past that place and just wonder. It took me all the way around the Middle East and back to the same place. And I used to go to dhikr on the same street, subhanAllah. Maybe it was the dhikr that actually brought me to Islam, Allah knows. But the same street that I used to live as a student, subhanAllah. So the biggest blessing for me was being able to experience and see Islam how it should be, Because when I was interested in researching into the religion, I didn't have any real examples in front of me, comparison, People in this country, they came to this country for many different reasons, and they don't always follow the deen in the best way. And, I'm not saying that I'm not criticizing anybody, but, when you travel in the Muslim countries and you travel in Syria, you see a little bit of a reflection of how the deen is lived, the living, breathing Islam. And that's what really impressed me. And that's what actually made me want to become Muslim, subhanAllah. So after becoming Muslim, I then traveled back to Syria in 1996 with a group, subhanAllah, from Birmingham. There was 10 or 12 of us who went on this group. And what happened was, it was through Sidi Sheikh Nazim that we had a contact with the Mufti of Damascus. His name was Sheikh Ahmed Giftaro. And he gave us scholarships to go and study there. So everything, mashallah, taken care of, all the food, the accommodation, everything, alhamdulillah, through the blessings of Sheikh Nazim, who was known to the Mufti. So we traveled there. It was about 10, 12 of us, and we were all searching for knowledge. We all went there to learn the deen. So my experience as a student of knowledge was completely different, obviously, to my experience before becoming Muslim. And we resided in a place called Abu Nur, which is basically on the foot of the mountain, Jabal al-Qasim. It's actually on the mountain, but it's just right at the foot of it. So from there, our accommodation was right at the top of the mountain. So we used to catch the Suzuki. I don't know if you've ever been there. They have these little Suzuki vans that you can kind of stand on the back of and ride up the mountain. And we used to love doing this, going up to our house and then coming down again for lectures. SubhanAllah, Shām is a place where many people from all over the world go and study there. In Abu Nur there were students from America, students from Chechnya, students from Bosnia, students from Singapore and Malaysia, you name it, any country in the Muslim world, they were there, subhanAllah. And people sacrificed a lot to be there, They would give up their money, their homes, their families, to go and stay in the land of Sham, to take knowledge from the people of Sham, from the scholars of Sham. And I always remember a story, one of the people I met there, he went into a restaurant. He was a Shami person himself. He went into a restaurant, and there was a guy cleaning there who was from Africa. And he used to see him sweep the floors every day and mopping, and he never thought anything about it. Maybe he thought he's one of the, there was a lot of Somali people in that area. Maybe he's one of the people who came from Somalia for financial reasons. After a few months, he realized that this person, he see him reciting Quran, and he realized this person is not an ordinary person. So he asked him, brother, where are you from? He's from Sudan. He says, why are you here? He says, I've come to seek knowledge. He says, I'm a Hafiz of Quran, and I've travelled all the way from Sudan just to be in this city to study knowledge. And that person was mopping the floors and sweeping the floors in a restaurant in Syria. He was a scholar, okay, but he sacrificed because he wanted to be there and benefit from the barakah of Sham. So, as you know, there's a lot of hadith and sayings about Syria, and I'm not going to speak from a scholarly perspective because the scholars can qualify the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the sanad, the transmission of those hadith. But what I will tell you is I'll relate some of the things that I heard from the people of Sham and from the scholars of Sham. Okay, so there are many hadith. The brother who recited, mashallah, he recited an ayah of Quran from Surah Al-Isra, which is mentions الذي باركنا حوله. يعني the Masjid al-Aqsa الذي باركنا حوله. يعني this is the place in Palestine, Al-Aqsa Masjid. الذي باركنا حوله indicates the earth that Allah Ta'ala has blessed around the Masjid al-Aqsa. And some scholars, and it's well known in Syria, many people will tell you this, that they talk about that earth being Bilad al-Sham. So Bilad al-Sham includes Al-Hijaz, Makkah, Medina, the two Haramain Sharifain, and also Lebanon, and some parts of Lebanon, and also the Bilad Sham is obviously including Syria. So when we say Sham today, we're thinking about Damascus, but actually Sham is the whole area. Even part of Iraq is included in that area. So Allah Ta'ala has specifically said that He's blessed that land. Okay. Also there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, al-Shām khairatullah fi ardi. Khairatullah fi ardi. Yani that we heard this hadith, and this was well known. All people would tell us this. That Allah Ta'ala's the Sham, the Bilad of Sham, it's the most choicest land in Allah Ta'ala's earth, that He created the earth, and within that earth there is an area of land or some earth which is the most beloved to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and the most choicest of Allah's earth that He chooses for Himself. Okay? And Allah Ta'ala in this hadith also says that Allah Ta'ala brings to the earth of Sham khiratullah fi ibadi. Yani He brings the people that He loves the most to that beloved land. Okay? So when you walk in Sham, you understand that every single prophet, every single wali has either in their life born in that earth, come from that place, or has been once in their life at least, has migrated to that place. So whether that Nabi, and there are a few Anbiya buried in Sham. In fact, Sayyidina Dhul-Kifl, Sayyidina Yahya, there's two that I know of, and there's probably more outside of Damascus. But I know Sayyidina Dhul-Kifl because a family member of mine actually looks after the grave of Sayyidina Dhul-Kifl, my in-laws, and his responsibility is to look after that graveyard. And there's also Sayyidina Yahya. So there are many Anbiya also who visited, like Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam visited Sham, and there's a maqam Ibrahim just outside Damascus. There's a cave which they say that he was there, and many of the prophets, they visited that area. And also our own Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, although he did not put his feet within Sham, he did visit that area. And there's a place called Qadam, which is means foot, planting. They say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam planted his foot in that place, but didn't. When he planted his foot, They say that Jibreel alayhi salam came to him and said, I will give you a choice, either you can have the Jannah of this earth or you can have the Jannah of the heavens. And he chose the Jannah of the heavens, and he indicated that Sham was the Jannah of this earth. And really and truly, when you talk to the people of Sham, now it's not so evident, but in the days my family and my wife's parents were alive, they said that you used to walk down throughout Sham and you could see the fruit orchards were so plentiful in Sham, and the water and the rivers were running in the middle of Sham. They said there were 7 rivers that used to run throughout the streets of Sham. Now it's streets, but in those days it was roads and tracks, you know. And everywhere you could see the barakah, the blessings of the fruit. The fruit trees would be just, you know, huge apples and oranges, mashallah, laden with fruit. And that was the barakah of Sham. So it's a very blessed place, subhanAllah. It's also a place that Allah Ta'ala has protected. You know that the famous hadith as well, Allahumma barik lana fi Shamina wa fi Yamanina. Oh Allah, bless our Sham and our Yemen. But also it's a place of protection that Allah Ta'ala is protecting. And the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned this. One hadith I heard was al-Shām Sha'amati. That Sham is my fortress, is my refuge. And this is the Prophet ﷺ speaking. And he said that anyone who fires an arrow in the direction of Sham, I fire an arrow back towards them. Meaning that Allah Ta'ala is protecting the Bilad of Sham. And that if anything happens, it's Allah Ta'ala's order, direct order that that's happening. There's also a lot of stories that the people used to speak of in the war. The French, occupied Syria in the 1930s, 40s, I think it is. And even later than that. And they tell a lot of stories about, even the pilots that used to drop bombs. They used to see things in the air flying around, and they would be diverted away from their targets, And Allah Ta'ala knows what they saw. Maybe it was angels, maybe it was anything you don't know. But this, we heard a lot of stories about this when we mixed with the people. And it's evident that Allah Ta'ala was protecting that place. And we know also about the 40 Abdal of Sham, the 40 servants or the awliya, the saints of Sham, and that Allah Ta'ala replaces them. When one passes away, He replaces them. And there is a place where they are said to worship and reside, and they have a connection with a place which is right on top of the Jabal, the mountain. You can go up, you can walk up there and pray in that place. And there's 40 musalla, subhanAllah. They made 40 musalla there. And there's lots of stories about, people staying up there at night and things happening. So there's a lot of, mashallah, barakah in that place. My own experience of mixing with the shayukh, subhanAllah, I'm still feeling it till today, brothers and sisters. After 20 years, I'm still feeling it today. The blessings that I'm feeling from that experience and that time that I spent there. And it is like that. I mean, anyone who goes to Syria, anyone who spends time there, ask them how they feel in that place. It's like walking into your own home or your own land. So when you go there, you feel like you're at home instantly. Immediately you feel like this is a place where I belong. It's the similar feeling when you go to Hijaz, you go to Haramain Sharif, you get that feeling. And some of you may have felt that in Turkey, in Istanbul. I certainly feel that in Istanbul. And you see the greatness of Islam in those places. So it has an effect on you. The barakah and the blessings have an effect on you. And it mixes with your soul. So when you leave the place, you feel you miss it badly. SubhanAllah. It reminds me of the hadith of the Prophet when he talks about Sayyidina Hussein. He says, Al-Hussein minni wa ana min Hussein. He says, Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. This is how I felt when I went to Syria. I feel like I'm from Syria's from me and I'm from Syria. SubhanAllah. I still feel like that today. SubhanAllah. A place where you get a lot of attachment to when you go there. So some of the shayukh I met there, initially when we went to study there, we stayed on the mountain, as I said, and there's a place, a masjid there, which is near the Turkish masajid. There's a community of Turkish people who live on the top of the mountain, and it's a place where there's a sheikh called Sheikh Abdullah al-Daghestani. He's from Dagestan, He immigrated from Dagestan and he resided on the top of the mountain for about 40 years teaching. And this is where Sheikh Muhammad Nazim, he also spent many years. And one of his Khalifas also was, his name is Sheikh Hussein Ali al-Rabbani, who used to reside in Afrin, which is, if you go to Aleppo, you go north from Aleppo, and there's a place just before you get to the border of Turkey called Afrin, and this place is well known for zaytun, for the olives. And alhamdulillah, through going to that place and being around those brothers, I got a chance to travel to Afrin as well, which in itself is an experience, subhanAllah. It's like living in the countryside of Syria, subhanAllah. And you go to the masjid, and in the morning, Fajr prayer, all the old men are shuffling to the masjid, You see them walking down the streets, and they've got this massive, like really thick sheepskin wool cloaks on, because it's so cold in Afrin, in the winter time. And you go there and you make wudu in freezing cold water, mashallah. But then you feel the barakah of the Fajr there, subhanAllah. And when you sleep in that place, we used to sleep outside in the summer, and you sleep under the stars, and the whole sky is like a vast expanse of sky, and there's just no feeling like it. You can't believe that feeling, brothers. Just lying and then just gazing up into the stars, mashallah, and feeling the barakah of Damascus. So, alhamdulillah, we got to know, and the character of these people. I mean, the Sheikh Hussein, who lived in Afrin, all day and all night, he's accepting guests. People is coming to his house, eating and going, coming, eating and going, coming, eating and going. And his family are working in the kitchen all day. And everyone, I stood there for a number of weeks in his company. And if you read some of the ayahs of Quran about the Siddiqun, the truthful people, and what their sifa is, the people who don't, any kind of tribulation doesn't shake them. They're like a mountain, the people who give constantly, and the people who have so much patience and mercy towards others. And all day he was giving, people very poor in that area, they would come to his house, and he had, mashallah, a big farm of zaytun, and every year they would get the crop of zaytun, they would make the oil, and they would have big tanakas of oil, like 10 kilogram, tins of oil. And people would come, and they would ask him for money because they were very poor, and he'd just give it all. He'd give the whole lot away. His whole crop every year, he would just give it to the people, subhanAllah. He built more than 25 masajid with his own hands and his own money. He would go to each village around Afrin, and he would go one by one. He would go there and he'd spend a few weeks there, and he'd establish a community there, and he'd build a masjid there. After a few months, after he got the masjid built, and the imams put the imam there, and he started them on their way, then he would go to the next village. And this went on for 25, 30 years. Until after that time, he'd completed more than 25 masajid, subhanAllah. So these are the kind of people that we were, alhamdulillah, sitting with. And, it's such a blessing to sit in a company, because, alhamdulillah, it starts to rub off on you. You start to feel more attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like they say, a person of Allah, when you sit in their company, your heart starts to remember Allah. Start saying Allah, Allah, Allah. You start to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because one sheikh, he explained it to me, it's like when you put two coals together. One coal is lighted and the other coal is still not lit. So what you do on the barbecue, you put the lit ones next to the ones that need to be light. And when you do that, the sparks come across and it starts to light the other one. And this is the effect of being in the majalis of the salihin, being in their company. Another sheikh we used to mention is, Sheikh Saleh. His Sheikh Saleh al-Hamuri, he, may Allah Ta'ala bless him, he's returned to his Lord, as has, mashallah, many of these shayukh now. They're all with their Lord now. He used to live in the old Damascus city, right next to Jamia Amawiyyah. And they used to have a hadra twice a week. And he was like a wasi, Allah Ta'ala just chose him as his servant. Even before he became, he took bay'ah in the tariqah, he took ijazah in the tariqah of Shadali tariqah, and he was connected to Sayyid al-Hashimi. Even before that, he used to do dhikr, and his majalis of dhikr there was such a fath that Allah gave him, such an opening, that anyone who used to go to his majalis, they would go, they would immediately enter into hal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, And the scholars of Damascus, it became well known through other scholars that, these majalis were, Allah is giving him a big fat in these majalis, and people were, really benefiting from them. And yet he had no sanad, he had no connection to any tariq or any silsila or any shaykh. It's just something that Allah Ta'ala gave him. So they encouraged him to actually take ijazah and take something, from the tariqat. And he took from Sayyid al-Hashimi. And all his life he sat in the masjid and he gave his whole life for Allah teaching. He would teach from morning to evening, majalis of dhikr, majalis of hadra. And the unusual thing about his majalis, a lot of young people used to go, subhanAllah. He had such a way, a spiritual, ruhani and beautiful, kind way with young people. They were immediately attracted to him. And they would go to the hadra and they loved the hadra because it's movement, it's enjoyable. You're listening to the nasheeds and you're moving as well at the same time. And that's very attractive to young people, subhanAllah. So there was a lot of young people there, and his dawah was amazing. A lot of people, alhamdulillah, benefited from him. So I hope I'm not going on too long, Sidi. It's okay. I spent, mashallah, probably a year and a half, 2 years studying in Abu Nur and attending the majalis of dhikr. And then, alhamdulillah, something came out of the blue, which was another gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I wasn't looking to get married, but alhamdulillah, I actually ended up getting married in Syria as well. So that came about through a student that I met at university, and he had, family in Syria, and we used to go to his house and we used to do mawlid in his house. We used to sing, and we learned to recite nasheed. So we'd go to all the majalis, and we loved the nasheed so much that we just wanted to learn how to play the daf and how to sing and everything. And alhamdulillah, I ended up proposing to a sister from Syria, alhamdulillah, and that gave me a window into normal life in Syria. What is the real people like? What are her family were like, and the everyday people in Shām. Because when you're a student in Shām, you're kind of in this little bubble. You're kind of in the majalis, and you're not really interacting that much with the people. But subhanAllah, when I was accepted into this family, I really started to understand, what these people were like and get an inside, view on that. And alhamdulillah, I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because my wife's probably listening, but they're beautiful people, subhanAllah. They took me in like that. I was their son. I was on my own. I didn't have my family there, and they took me in and they fed me and they looked after me. And it was just like I was their son, subhanAllah. Beautiful thing, some of the beautiful characteristics of the people of Shām. One of the things that is really nice about them is the way they speak. They speak with such love, and they use a lot of mithal. A mithal is basically like, I don't know what the grammatical English term is. It's like it's like an example. So they will say something like, sorry? A simile, yeah. They will use simile, but they will use it in such a beautiful way. So when the women talk to their children, they say things like "Tukbarini." Tukbarini means bury me. It's a form of love. It's a kind of strange kind of love. It's a very extreme love. That you're asking that person to bury you. It's like it's hard to explain. The brother might be able to explain it better. And things like, when they're welcome, they're so welcoming. Ahleen, sahleen, marhabtain. They say two times, 2 times marhaba, 2 times welcome. And they'll say ahad, as-sabat wal ithnain. They'll say on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Ahlan wa sahlan. They go off and on. They go on and on and on and on. Mashallah, welcoming you to their house. And they things like they say, when they say when they see you, they'll say tufajjiran, yani. Like the water has overflowed, and a jiran is like a basin they used to wash in, and when they used to wash in the basin, they'd open the tap and the water would sometimes overflow. So when they say tuffa jiran, they're saying my heart's overflowing because I'm so happy to see you, And these kind of, mashallah, the way they speak is very sweet, subhanAllah. And you'll see that you'll ask any Arab that You know, all the musalsalat, you know, the TV programs and the dramas and the films, why they're so popular in the Arab countries is because even the Arabs themselves, they love to hear the Shami, the way of speaking in Sham. They love to hear it, you know. It's very sweet and beautiful. Another of the things that you notice about them is when they get angry, they don't, they say, if they're a religious person, they say, Salli ala nabi. Salli ala nabi. Yeah, what does it mean? It means pray upon the Prophet. So imagine two people are going to have a fight. And the other person, one person says to them, Salli ala nabi, you know. And before they know it, they're saying, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. And before they know that, they've forgotten what they were arguing about. So, subhanAllah, it's a beautiful way of diffusing a situation, you know. And subhanAllah, I stayed in that place for maybe 2 years, 3 years, and I visited that place. And so I never really saw one fight in Syria. I never saw two people hitting each other. I think the worst I saw was probably, you know, when somebody on the street, there was like an accident or something, and two people got out, and they're like shouting at each other, but they're not actually hitting each other. They'll do everything, but except for hitting each other, subhanAllah. There'll be a lot of shouting, a lot of waving of arms, you know, people will be coming in, Salli ala nabi, Salli ala nabi, you know, calm down, calm down. And before you know it, it's all finished, and they're all best friends again, subhanAllah. And that is one of the barakah of Sham, subhanAllah. And one of the things you see when you get in a taxi in Syria as well, and you're going on, you see people are going all over the shop. You know, it's not like here where you go in a straight line, you know, everyone's going all over the place. And there's so many accidents, potential accidents that could happen, you know. You see like people, you think to yourself, how is that possible that no one actually crashes in this country? You know, because you think to yourself, there must be so many accidents. If the people drove like that in England, it'd be like, no, there'd be accidents every 5 minutes. But it's again one of the blessings of Syria. I was convinced that it's the barakah of Sham, that these people are not hitting each other's cars. You know, subhanAllah. So it is really a blessed place, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, I won't spend too much more time. But you know, after alhamdulillah I got married, and the wedding itself was amazing, because the wedding itself was a completely different experience to what I was used to in the world. The business, you know. Even when you go in a shop, sometimes people say, Khali alayna. They say, doesn't matter, don't worry, I'll pay for it. It's on us, you know, it's on me. You don't have to pay. And sometimes people actually fight, you know, I used to fight to have to give them the money. You know, I would give them the money, and they say, Khali alayna. And they say, you know, and it's not just, they're not just saying it, they actually mean it. You know, it's amazing. And the way they do business as well is very honest. The akhlaq and the characteristics, they have handed that down from family to family. You know, and because of that, there's a lot of blessings, again, barakah, because of the way they deal with each other. They're so fair, they're so just in the way they deal. And it reminds you of the stories of Imam al-Shafi, you know, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and people like that in those times, where they used to trade in the souk, you know, and the materials and things like that, and they would always be so honest in the way they dealt. And, you know, subhanAllah, many people become Muslim because of these things, as you know. So, one of the other blessings that I received from Syria, inshallah, 2 minutes, inshallah. One of the blessings that I received from Syria is, you know, the nasheeds. And alhamdulillah, since we came back from Sham, we started the group, the nasheed group, just like the brothers here singing. And wallahi, brothers, one of the best things you can do is sing. Because first of all, it's enjoyable. That's the number one thing. It's such a beautiful way to worship Allah, to get close to Allah, because it's so easy. You know, when you feel down, if you listen to nasheed, it picks you up. It lifts you. It uplifts your spirits. You know, and it's through the group Sham that we've had so much opportunity to be able to sit in the presence of Shaykh. Whenever there's a program, we'll be in there, you know, singing for them. And it's such an opening, it's been such an opening for us and the brothers, alhamdulillah, to benefit from that. Obviously, coming back to the point of the talk, Sidi Khalid's point here is, what does the future hold for the people of Syria? You've all seen what they're going through. For us, how can we honor the people of Sham? We've all received so many blessings in so many ways that I've already outlined to you. Personally, I've received so much from Syria and that land. And the way, inshallah, I think we need to look at this is to honor Sham and its people, we need to carry those people. So we need to make an effort, inshallah, in some way or other to repay some of the debts and some of the favors that Allah Ta'ala has shown us through the people of Shām, is to try to carry them. Because the reality is that they are Shām. The Ard, the land, is a blessed land. But the people are also carrying that in their hearts. And the people are all over the world now. A lot of them have left and they're residing in Turkey and Syria and different places outside of Syria in Europe. One thing that we have to do to honor Shām is to honor those people and to carry them and to help them in whatever way we can, inshallah. Whether that is through majalis like this, raising awareness, or through giving charity, inshallah. So, barakallahu fikum. With the Sheikh's permission, I'd just like to recite one qasida, inshallah, which is one of the first nasheed that we learnt in Syria. When we walked into Abu Nur, as I told you, there was we had an opportunity to study through Sheikh Nazim's relationship with Mufti of Syria, Sheikh Ahmed al-Fawr, Allah Ta'ala bless him. We were able to study in that place. And when we walked into that place on a Friday, on Jummah, as the Sheikh was entering, they would be reciting this nasheed. And it was the first nasheed that we heard, and that we copied it and learnt it, inshallah. Bismillah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. طرقت باب الرجاء والناس قد راقدوا وبت أشكو إلى مولاي ما أجد لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. وقلت يا أمالي في كل نائبة ومن عليه لكشف الضر أعتمد لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. وقد بسطت يدي بالذل مفتقرا إليك يا خير من مدت إليه يد لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. فلا تردنها يا ربي خائبة فبحر جودك يروي كل من يرد لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. يا آل بيت النبي السيد العربي لكم مددت يدي ففرج كربي لا إله إلا الله لا إله محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه. سيدنا النبي سيدنا النبي سيدنا النبي سيدنا النبي سيدنا النبي سيدنا النبي سيدي محمد عالي النسب حبيب النبي. سيدي محمد عالي النسب حبيب النبي. سيدنا النبي 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 سيدي محمد عالي النسب حبيب النبي. سيدي محمد عالي النسب حبيب النبي. اللهم صل وسلم